Today's episode is brought to you by Facebook. Twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast.
It's High Noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. How you doing?
Oh, better than a lot of other people, apparently, today after a
crazy just gaming news day. Maybe not so much Overwatch or Overwatch League specific news day, but at this point, I'm willing to call that a positive and just put a bow on it and let some other gaming communities have their struggles at the moment.
To the surprise of literally 3 people, Mixer failed. I don't know, maybe we shouldn't make light of a lot of people losing their job, and I don't know, or maybe we should, because whatever.
It is what it is. We didn't shy away from making jokes of people moving to Mixer when it was still a viable platform that you could stream on. So I guess we probably shouldn't stop now. You should have seen this writing on the wall.
It's less about the content creators who made the jump, because it's like you made your own bed. It's more like the developers and stuff, people who probably lost their actual jobs.
Oh yeah, that definitely a feels bad, man, for them for sure. Hopefully, they find work in another platform or somewhere else before long. A lot of places should be hiring as we come out of the coronavirus stuff. So hopefully, the timing was less bad than it could be for them.
Right.
Least.
I mean, for the content creators, it's like, you can stream on Twitch and get 6 viewers.
Yeah, you can double your viewership. a boost as soon as you go over there.
We're horrible people, and I don't care. Okay, let's talk about actual Overwatch, or at least some housekeeping. Of course, huge shout outs to our executive producer, Bungee Bamboo, who has supported us over twitch.tv, or not Twitch, well, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast, but patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. You can do the same. Head over there and support the show for sure. Or twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. We stream live every Monday with the episode. And I don't know where I was going with that. I thought I had more to say, and then I checked my brain and I didn't. Speaking of supporting, you can go over, check out the Blackwatch report and support Tier 2 and contenders. I know that's what the cool kids are saying these days, right? Is support Tier 2, support contenders.
Absolutely.
People are standing contenders, and there's no 2 people who have standed contenders longer and more vehemently than Kyle Wynn and Thorn.
Myself and wait, who were you gonna say?
Than us 2. We were covering contenders before it was called contenders. Actually, true.
I participated in Contenders Season 0.
That is true. You did.
Take that, Thorn. I see you in chat.
No, but Kyle Wynn and Thorn Rain with the Blackwatch report have been standing contenders longer than many of these wannabes for quite some time. So definitely make sure you check them out. They've got their own feed, own Twitch channel, and all that good stuff. Just look for Blackwatch report on the internet. Deathblow, we'll move on and we'll talk about what we did. Anything fun and exciting for you this week?
I just been keeping going with the streaming business. I had like a 10-hour stream when there was some new content.
Have been
for
streaming a lot.
SOT, and I've really been putting in some hours recently. Got a new video out. I'm not gonna flood this podcast with talk about the other game content.
We're not going to flood we're not going to flood the podcast with telling people to go to twitch.tv/deathblowttv. You already know to go to twitch.tv/deathblowttv and to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
And if you wanted like a link to my Discord. You could just go to my Twitter, which is DeathblowTTV, and you could follow me there. And then
we're not
tweet
going to
that link.
spam.
But we're not going to spend time on this show doing that. It's just not the way we operate.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I've been having a bunch of fun with that. I know a couple people that listen to the show have like bought. I think I saw Heebie playing Sea of Thieves. He hasn't joined me yet for a session, but I've converted a couple of people over to enjoying that game. I played a little with Thornrain on stream the other day. Just been having a really good time with that game. So please.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit closer than I thought I was to actually reinstalling. It's
you've been viewing more than
I'm bought into viewing. I am bought into the videos. I'm bought into the stream. I'm like, I went into it with never even considering playing Sea of Thieves again, and I'm like, I'm a little bit close actually.
Was it when you saw me doing the squid dance on air?
No, it wasn't the squid dance.
That I just killed?
Just the like, I don't know. I feel like I feel like if I have the right group, I think like it wasn't the company that turned me off last time. It was like I was a very much beginner in a group of 3 other people who knew exactly what they were doing, and it was like I just felt like I was more of a hindrance than anything.
Now you can hop in with me because I've done just about everything that the game has to offer at this point, and I'm just hunting for content and fun and memes. So yeah, it's an absolute blast to play, and I'm with you on the content. That's like what drove me to wanting to make content for it. Not so much the fun I have when playing, but the fact that I can always get like just really enjoy watching a adventure on YouTube or just hopping into a stream or something like that. Like it really is a phenomenal game for content purposes, I think.
Yeah. So definitely, again, we're not going to spend any more time telling you to go to YouTube.
Don't say the name again.
I won't say DeathblowTTV again.
Oh boy.
Got there. For me, I don't even want to talk about it, but I am officially a boomer. You can just say hashtag #OkayMe now.
Look, guys, he turned 30 years old and his hats don't fit him anymore.
I know.
He's got side-parted haircut.
I've got like a dad shirt on already. Yep. Like I'm fully bought in to the lifestyle.
He's like an older version of Kevin Naki, but significantly younger in actuality, just not in appearances.
Yeah,
you'd have to cut him open and count the rings in order to tell that Blevins is younger now.
I put sandals on today and socks just immediately appeared. It was weird. And the straps around them, they became mandals. It was crazy. Yeah, no, I'm old now, and it was my birthday over the weekend. I had fun. Had a good stream, and
So serious question though, what's it like to be past your prime?
Well, I've known that for quite some time. I've been past my prime for about 12 years now, so it's fine.
I've really enjoyed you turning 30, probably more than I've enjoyed any of my actual birthdays.
Yeah.
I can't even say on air the birthday greeting that I sent you on your actual birthday.
True. That is true. You can't.
Nonetheless, happy birthday to you, and congratulations on still being alive. You did it, man.
I am past my prime, but you can use your prime, your Twitch primes over here at twitch.tv/HiningPodcast.
That was the one time I wanted to. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not affiliate yet, so having people go there and be upset is going to be you gotta.
Hey, but them going there gets me closer.
True. But again, we're not going to be mindlessly shilling DeathblowTTV anymore. We're over that now.
Don't do that.
I don't know where I'm going with that. Let's move on. Talk about some news. Kevster has joined the LA Gladiators. Death, I know you have a very warm words to say about Kevster.
I have nothing negative to say about Kevin. I feel like you were setting me up to bash him. What we know so far, we did get to play this week, so we can guarantee he's approximately 3/4 of a Dante in the DPS role.
Yeah.
So, honestly, this is a really, really strong signing, I think, for the Gladiators. Birdwing's really been working out for them. They needed somebody to kind of pair with him and hopefully pop off a little bit more from the flex DPS position, and I think Kevster's a really, really strong choice. There's been some good chances to run some double hit scan compositions lately with, Ash and Tracer, and Kevster's a great addition that gives them that flexibility more than Mirror or Jaru really did. So I really think he's primed to do well with the Gladiators. This week, notwithstanding, we'll get to their results soon. But I mean, it's a really, really tough ask to ask a player to come in and on Monday start scrimming with a team playing from Europe on the ping that he was on. I believe he was playing from here. I think the broadcast said as much, anyways. And then asking him to compete with one of the top Western DPS players on the Tracer role is a really, really tough ask. So I think it's a bright future for Kevster in the league. He's somebody that really stood out in contenders prior to this signing here to bring him into Overwatch League. So hopefully he takes off starting at the perfect time, which is next week, immediately after the Houston.
Yeah, I mean it's nice. The story is really, hey, we're actually seeing contenders players getting called up and not just random other players that exist or players
casters or analysts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was amazing news until Florida ruined it, and now they're forever cursed. But yeah, I mean, it's just good. I mean, yeah, Thorn is popping off in chat right now. Yeah, played in the contenders finals in EU. So yes, was in EU as well as another player that has joined the Overwatch League. Oni God has joined the Dallas Fuel, and well, maybe not the best week to be on the Dallas Fuel, Death.
Yeah, we'll just kind of cover that result there. Honestly, I've not seen a bigger throw in professional gaming, until this game happened here for the Dallas Fuel. It's funny, they made the signing, and I said, kind of, not really sarcastically at all, but I said it in Discord. I'm like, you just know they're going to bench Decay for this man and lose because of it. And they literally instantly, they get 3-0'd by the Vancouver Titans and their entirely new roster playing scattered across the globe.
Yeah.
Just an absolute head scratcher of a choice there. The team does not have the kind of record to be taking games off. And
no.
There was a statement from Arrow basically saying we really wanted to take advantage of the easier schedule this week and figure out what some of our problems are. And since none of those problems are Decay, you take him out and it should highlight some of your other areas of weakness. And I get it, and it makes sense, but you have to be good enough to beat the worst team in the league without your star player in order for it to make sense. You can't be throwing the game and the overall match win in order to get this result. And
okay, that does not actually make sense. That's like, okay, so we know there's problems with our car, but one of those problems is not the wheels. So we took the wheels off and we're gonna try something else. Like, I mean, no.
The analogy, the way you put it, sure makes it sound terrible. But I do think it makes a bit of sense. We talk about garbage time for a lot of teams, and
kind of
using the weaker matchups to alleviate maybe stress on the players or anything like that. But the bottom line is that it's okay to do that. You just can't get absolutely put down by the worst team in the league going into the match, right? Like that just can't be
by a
the
team
end
who
result.
Struggled to call a team a couple weeks ago.
It was really painful. Yeah, like a team that was on par for at my least, at my absolute worst opinion of Boston, right? Which we're far from there now at this point. They've leveled up significantly, but at the worst they've been all year, right? They were competing to be worse than that in most people's eyes, and then they get the 3-0 win. It just really shows. I mean, we saw it was clear as day when Dallas beat Houston going in the tournament in the Melee, that it was the Decay show, right? That he put the team on his back and they won solely and completely because of that carry performance. And that was, I think, really highlighted, right? Like if you had doubts of, oh, sure, he looked good, but he was enabled by the rest of the team, I encourage you to watch this match and realize that no, he was not. He was just a Widowmaker that clicked every head that showed up on his screen. And it was what put that match away single-handedly. So this team needs to get back to using Decay 100% of the time.
Yep.
You don't have, like, your overall win percentage isn't bad, but you've got a lot of games left to play, and you can't forfeit them. You can't afford to give them up because you're still like sub 500 in the wins. Like, it's just, it's painful. And listen, if you wanted to use this as an opportunity to like let Onigod stretch his legs and let him get out there and get some stage time versus a weaker opponent, the painfully obvious way to do it was Decay and Onigod together in the Tracer Ash, like I just talked about with the Gladiators. Kevster being able to do that with Bird Ring, it looks great. It was just staring them right in the face. It was the obvious just do this forehead kind of a situation, and they just didn't. They just left a guy on the bench. And even when it was turning, even when they're like scrambling for Arrow to get a statement to reinforce so we can read it on the halftime of the broad, like they just still didn't reverse. They still didn't call Decay and be like, hey man, we need you to work today. We're busier than we thought. Like, a Subway does when they when they're having
for what it's worth, I'm not answering that
day.
call if I'm Decay at my real job in the past when that would have been relevant. Because I have answered that call before begrudgingly. That's always the worst when it's like you've got like a Saturday off in a job where you would normally maybe work a Saturday, and then you get that call in the morning from your boss, and it's just like, hey, so you want to come in? It's like,
I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come in on Saturday.
Yeah,
how are you not gonna make the office space?
I was trying. I know I was trying to, and then I'm in my old age, my memory is not so great, so I'm gonna be pulling that card for a long time. But in my old age, my memory is not working so good, so I'm gonna be pulling that card for a long time. See,
in other news, it was Blevins' 30th birthday this week. So we're now both too old to remember anything that's happened on air.
Yes.
But yeah, just honestly, it's crazy how Dallas can go back and forth between a team that looks like they're on the up and up and competing for that middle of the pack kind of a standing, and just to fall flat on their face like this. It's honestly a very Dallas thing to do, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. It's on par with what they've done in the past. And I think for the most part, at least from what I've seen in chat and in Twitter conversations, this is a coaching decision. That seems to be where most of the blame is going. I mean, there's more talent on the team than they showed in this match. And when that's the case, and when they've shown it in every other match of the season, you really do have to look at the coaching staff and go, okay, what did you do to make this team so ill-equipped and unprepared to play Overwatch today? Like, how did you make this happen? And it really, I think, just comes down to like whether or not your team also has problems. As a coaching staff, you need to be good enough to watch tape with Decay in it and go, this is what's going wrong. We need to get better, even in a win, even in everything. Like, you shouldn't need to take the guy out to highlight the problems that you're having. It should just be a matter of reviewing the VODs and talking to your players and doing your job as a coach to figure out what your problems are and how to address them going forward.
And it's like, it's kind of like even if your other players are performing, it's almost like a false positive because they're performing without Decay. So like different situations are happening, right? And someone's going to be playing a position that is Decay's position. So what value does that bring you? Like, there's a lot of things wrong with that statement, and not with the statement, with the logic behind the statement. That, I mean, it was very clearly like, oh, we're gonna lose to the worst team in the league. We should and we took out our best player. We should probably say something about how this was planned and get people on our side, because it was really glaringly bad. Not just from you lost to the worst team in the league, but as I've pointed out, it doesn't even make sense conceptually. And what I'm wondering, Death, is if you are, a Dallas Fuel fan or Dallas Fuel upper management or someone who is looking at Arrow, I mean, you don't look at one game and go, oh, well, they lost this game, I'm going to fire the guy, right? But the decision making there seems really bad. And if you're captaining my ship, I'm not confident in that captain if they're making this type of decision. Like, it seems really bad to do that.
there's been times Arrow's seemed like he's had the team well prepared for the meta, what they needed to do. Like stage 4 last year, they were like innovating with things and like using them in ways that other people weren't. And it's definitely, there's been flashes of it, and you've definitely seen bits and pieces. But I also remain very convinced that he like saddled them with the Zachary contract because he really wanted like push to bring him in, and he's done a lot to put the team. So it's not all negative, and he's getting the lion's share of the blame, but that is a little bit just comes with the territory kind of a thing here for me. I could have said the same thing about the Houston coaching staff and Flame and Tyrong and all those guys. There was times when they had the team super well prepared, performing very, very well. And then they just always seemed to leave them critically flawed in some way that really held them up from overall, season success, which is the business they should be in now. So, yeah, I think this is a very similar scenario. And even with the changes, the additions, the things that Dallas did to acquire talent and players to make them viable this season, we did always look at this roster as a team that was like fighting for relevancy for the fans' sake, and then also in a pretty solid rebuild, right? And I think we're looking at them much differently now. They've got 2 tanks that they could very realistically keep as backups or, possible competitors for a starting job with some new additions in the offseason. We're looking at DPS players that we view as some of the better at their positions in the league. So that's a very great starting point, a great building blocks to start with. And then you're looking at a support line that, let's be honest, needs a lot of work. But, that's workable, right? And you can kind of see the roadmap for the future there. And it's just a matter of, does Hastro believe Arrow's part of that roadmap? And how do they address that going forward? My gut is we'll see that change in the offseason.
Yeah, and it's tough, and we don't need to get into a huge discussion about coaching because we sort of bring it up from time to time because, we've been huge proponents of coaching staff and non-player staff being a huge part of the success of teams. I think you look at the Arrow situation, you look at the coaching situation for honestly a lot of the like non-crusty ran teams, honestly. And it's like, man, the coaching staff really kind of leaves something to be desired, right? Like, it's like there's these bonehead plays. Soul Dynasty they roll the dice every week, or, where the hell is Sure for? Like, what's going on? Like, all these different things. And it's like, in the NFL or NBA, there's a very large, highly talented pool of coaching staff, right? Like all the way down across the leagues or across the league itself into college ball. I mean, you can go super far. There are people stepping over each other to get a head coaching position like this. And there's just not that talent. There's just not that pool there.
Tiers and hierarchies within the teams, right? You've got the head coach, the assistant head coaches, the offensive coordinators, the defensive coordinators, positional coaches, and so there's like a logical progression there. And in Overwatch, it goes from like nobody knows what Harsha really does with the Vancouver Titans to he's now the head coach of the Houston Outlaws, and they just were second. So like you're pumped, and there's really, and honestly, when you look at it, there's only a small handful of teams where you have to think they're probably not going to make a coaching staff change. Not that all of them will, but you can just see that it's a possibility or something they might consider. And, even a good chunk of the ones where I think they won't be changed, as some of them are like Harsha and Houston. And it's just like, you don't think one season's they're not going to change it after one season where he really didn't, other than the beginning of the season, didn't really fall flat on his face, right? Like they've been getting better as the season's progressed. Right now, they look as good as they ever have. And so it's not to say that he's great, needs to keep his job, but it's just like it's still new enough in his tenure that you're just not going to move on from him right away. But part of that comes from just it being so difficult to evaluate, us having such little access behind the scenes to know how impactful they are, what they're doing with the teams, with the practice times, stuff like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And speaking of coaching staff, I think that's a good segue.
It is a great segue. We're it's like we've been doing this for years. Supreme has been promoted to the head coach of the Washington Justice. This, of course, was a team with a coaching staff and front office vacuum recently.
Yeah, we were commenting last week how we didn't even know who was going to be handling the interim duties or what was going on with the team in that capacity. So he was, I believe, with the team prior to this. So makes a lot of sense. You keep some continuity, and I do believe it is more of a interim status thing. Now, sometimes that works out. You like what they're doing, you keep them. Not to say you won't stick around, but at the moment, at least, I would consider it an interim situation and arrangement, and expect them to reevaluate at the end of the season. But with a lot of the speculation that they were going to be moving towards more of a full Korean staff and player base, I think this would make a lot of sense, as now all 6 of their starting players are now Korean, and so are their 3 coaches, their head coach, their assistant coach, their strategic coach. So they might really want this to work. We'll see how they do the rest of the way. I guess you need to show some improvement with the addition of the former Titans players coming in with Janu and Stitch, but they're still a little undermanned. I don't know. They're a very difficult team to pin down at the moment. I kind of liked their position, not that it had to work when they were Corey and Stratus led and the DPS core, and you could see how it could come together and work. And they're probably closer to a position where they can really level up and become a very serious team, but it's harder to see because there's a couple of players on the roster. I'm not going to get too specific, Tuba, but that maybe definitely need to be replaced. And even Stitch, I don't think his hero pool really lines up for what they need. I don't know. To me, I've always been thought of him as more of a Widow and a McCree than really kind of able to excel in the dive DPS categories. But maybe that's could purely be a function of what the metas were when I was able to tune in and catch some of his matches and things like that. Because you go to Wikipedia, it shows the Tracer, the Sombra, and his hero pool. I just have never been overly impressed when gotten a chance to see it, but it's a little hard to judge currently when he comes out on the Washington team playing from Korea and EOS servers, and it's a rough time at the moment for Washington. We'll see if the new head coach can do anything to steady the ship a little bit.
Yeah, they feel the Washington story feels in a way kind of like the Florida Mayhem story, where the Corey Stratus kind of felt like early misfits, Tavik and that crew that came over from pre-Overwatch League, had sort of a legacy with misfits and some Giganti players. It's okay, they could really put what's that?
Fraggy would be so proud.
I know. Fraggy, where are you? I need to see more Fraggy just in general.
I think he's still practicing his Winston play so he can get back in the league. Pretty sure.
I'm hoping. I completely forgot. They feel a lot like them, or the Florida Mayhem, where it's okay, they've had success in the past. They've shown the ability to compete. I mean, Corey and Stratus did have a nice run at the end of season 2 where they looked like a real team, and they looked like, honestly, not dominant, but a strong pairing. And while that didn't particularly happen with Florida, it's you look at on paper, these players are good, they could perform, and then the team itself decided to go to a Korean team. Okay, great. A lot of talent on the Florida Mayhem for a long time didn't pan out. Didn't work, and now we're just starting to see maybe some the fruits of the labor of the team. So even if you have a team that has talent, they change over to a Korean roster, they still have talent. Even if the players have played together, it just doesn't click instantly for everybody. So
yeah, I got to direct a question at chat because it doesn't normally happen. Bare Hands, did you know we were going to start talking about the Florida Mayhem roster? Because you showed up in chat the moment we were about to start
literally
talking
the
about
second.
it. But you're right. They're a little bit in that state where, Bare Hands left Florida. They lost.
I wasn't even looking at chat
either.
That's
Their
funny
players. Yeah, it is just really funny timing. They and it's the same thing, right? the general manager's gone from Washington, the coaching staff changes over, and you're going to probably maybe next year see some talent come out of this Washington team, and a lot of them will be players that were acquired under the previous administration or the previous regime, and then that regime won't get any credit for it. Very similar to what's going on with Florida right now. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do. Again, this season is lost though for Washington, so they're trying to have that same stage 4 resurgence that they had last season. And just this time around, maybe it can coincide with a bit of a splash in one of the tournaments that are upcoming or something along those lines. But we're a long way even from that.
Yeah, I guess the sort of negative of the tournament structure that was, I guess, better for the stage playoffs was like, you're playing for wins in the season, but if you're already so far behind that the wins don't matter, then it's like, who cares, right? I don't know.
If you can't get pumped for the spoiler roll, then I don't know what you're doing competing.
True.
Competitive.
It's almost better than just winning outright.
It is a low key a little more fun, especially I would think for gamers who really like, we all embrace the troll a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, we've all got that troll in us that, hey, I'm out, but I just knocked you. Like, your game mattered, but it didn't matter to me. But I just beat you. Like, that's its own positive feeling that I would think the players would enjoy.
You'd think so, but not everyone's like us boomers now. Death and that
cowards.
These Zoomers, they like fair play and so cowards is right. Okay, last bit of news here to talk about is QOQ has joined the Hangzhou Spark, the team who I don't want to talk at all about, but we have to.
I mean, one of the acquisitions this week had to have a positive impact straight away out of the gate, and fortunately for me and unfortunately for you, it was QOQ joining the Hangzhou Spark. Also a little bit Architect finally getting to actually play with Hangzhou as well. But I think QOQ is another really, really strong addition. He is a player, I'm blanking exactly on where he comes from. The Korean scene for sure. He was on Runaway previously, T1 MVP space. So he's been a part of the Korean contender scene for a while, and was, I think, on the short list of players ready to be called up. So good for him to, I think, join a team with a very strong position going forward. Maybe their record's not as good as they wanted it to be, but it's far from out of the mix, out of the running. They've made some other changes, so it's not like one person trying to fit into a pre-existing group, right? They're a little bit reinventing themselves, and now he gets to be part of that instead of being shoehorned in. I think that can at least feel a little better. It also makes it a little harder for it to work, but all things considered, it's a strong start here for QOQ and Architect on the Hangzhou Spark. He looked really strong, specifically in the Sigma role. We'll see what it looks like on the Diva role as that comes back into the mix, as there's no hero pool for the next 2 weeks. But I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on this. Hangzhou is a team that is gonna shake things up a little bit in the Asian region for sure.
Yeah, I will say, as someone who has been on both sides of the I've been on every side of like being on a team of one. I'm part of the like core group, and there's a new player that's coming in and joining that. I've been on the opposite side of that, where I'm the outsider. I've been on the side where there's a bunch of like small pods that are joining together for like a super team. And it can definitely be. It's kind of fun and exhilarating in a way to be the like odd person out and bring in your own perspective, but it can also be very intimidating depending on what the group you're coming into is like. So.
I was gonna say, depending on what the result is too.
True.
It's something that's very fun. You feel great when you join up and you make a positive impact and you help them succeed, but you heap a lot of self-blame on yourself when you join,
and you're filling the shoes of the person
right, and it doesn't quite work out, and maybe like Kevster probably is beating himself up a little bit for the loss for the Gladiators, because they were on paper going to win that one. Onigat as well, and really neither player, I don't think, played poorly or did anything where they need to feel like they were a part of the problem, and it was more the failings elsewhere, whether in the decision to play them or how to use them or something like that, or really just kind of unrelated things with the Kevster thing. I think it was just a circumstance of the meta of the week and Houston being hot at the time. But I don't know. We'll see. At least it worked for QOQ. We'll see how it works for them going forward.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about those aforementioned results right now. It's tournament talk. Started off the weekend with the Guangzhou Charge winning 3-2 versus the Seoul Dynasty. London Spitfire wins 3-0 against the Chengdu Hunters. The aforementioned match, Hangzhou Spark won 3-2 versus NYXL. San Francisco Shock 3-0's the Paris Eternal. Atlanta Reign 3-0'd the Toronto Defiant. Houston Outlaws, as we mentioned before, won 3-1 versus the LA Gladiators. Vancouver Titans with their first new team win, I believe, 3-0 versus the Dallas Fuel. Guangzhou Charge wins 3-2 against the Hangzhou Spark. Chengdu Hunters lose 3-2 versus the Shanghai Dragons. NYXL comes back with a victory 3-1 over the London Spitfire. Philly Fusion 3-0's Boston Uprising. LA Valiant 3-1 over the Florida Mayhem. And San Francisco Shock rounds out the weekend 3-0 versus the Washington Justice. So we've already talked about a number of these matches. I know, Death, you're probably chomping at the bit to dive a little bit deeper into the Houston match.
I mean, we kind of already covered it. It was the Dante show.
Yeah.
He was absolutely popping off. I thought, the difference between that and like the Decay showing was that there was definitely more to it than that. And that's why it was a complete win. But honestly, probably as clean of a victory for Houston as we've almost ever seen from them. Linkser looked to be pretty close to at the top of his game. Widow, Ash, McCree, all those characters were featured this weekend by Houston and by Linkser, and he performed great. Dante put on an absolute clinic on the Tracer. There was a spot in Rialto. It was, if you saw it, it was like single-handedly, the team was like down 2 or 3 deaths, and then he just like gets in the back line, takes out a support, gets the opposing Tracer and Kevster, and like just absolutely put the team on his back in that situation and pushed them through the point. But yeah, they just seemed really clean. Like they had a firm plan and a playbook. Some spicy tech, I think, even too, right? On Kings Row, they were like putting a May wall on top of a fire hydrant so that the Symmetra could get the teleporter through the choke point. Then you drop it so the teleporter drops and breaks line of sight from the exit, and they all flooded through and just stole the high ground real fast. Won the point easy. They showed us some things that we really haven't gotten to see from them in the past. And we talked about the new coaching staff, and I talked about how they'd get better as the year went on, and hopefully this is a signal that that's really, really taking hold and happening. But you don't make that decision. You know what I mean? Like you can't come to that conclusion based off of one match, but exactly what you wanted to see as a fan. And I think, I don't even know if we can look at the current qualifier positionings for the tournament or what have you.
I mean, why would you be able to? It's not like that's extremely pertinent information for viewers.
I mean, there's still a May Melee tab, but there's nothing for the June event on the.
Why would there be that? The June event hasn't happened yet.
True enough.
It's not like it's June already.
It does, I think, put them in a decent position there. I'm going back to look and see. They lost to Philly last week, so 1-1. We'll see what they're able to do next week with the remainder of their qualifiers or their placement matches for that. 2-1 should give them a solid seed, the ability to maybe pick an opponent, and then from there you're already, I think, adding a win, right? If you win that match in the semifinals, you're starting to add some wins to your win totals. So something Houston would desperately need because of their glacially slow start. When they do those catch-up games, you're not going to see Houston much. You're not going to see Philadelphia very much. Those teams were very active, and as things were shutting down for coronavirus, they were in the area that was not yet shutting down and not yet affected. So they were able to just play their matches at will. And yeah, so they have some ground to make up, and this would be a very big boon to be able to do that, getting a couple wins from a tournament. So we'll have to wait and see. As far as the other matches, some of the biggest talking points I have from a lot of these matches are from matches not super exciting to talk about. Paris Eternal lost 3-0, but Eggsy was back. And that to me is a big deal.
Yeah.
Weren't able to take down San Francisco. They did get 3-0 there, but great to see as they're really trying to get to that final season form with Sparkle and Eggsy together. And I think if they can find themselves in a Reinhardt-centric metagame, that could be really something to watch. If not, and they're forced into Winston and dive-based for the end of the season, it might not make a difference, because it really does make that big of a deal to their front line and how effective they can be. Otherwise, Erster played one map, I think it was. She at least showed up a little bit.
Hey.
There was a hilarious tweet from Baby Bay about that. Check his account. I know you love that.
The biggest props in the world to Baby Bay for calling Sideshow out.
Right, and listen, it's a great for him to be able to be like good humored about it and to address it and engage with it, and also like have a little fun with it, right? Like he turned it into a copy pasta moment where he wrote a copy pasta instead of letting his frustration really show, or something like that. It was kind of like a kiss the ring kind of a thing.
Right.
It was truly absolutely hysterical. But Sideshow was 100% correct. Like, what if you just played him instead of Baby Bay? That might be the way to go about it. But it's an awkward situation, right? Because Sideshow's got to give the analysis. Baby Bay's going to see it and probably want it. So I don't know. Just a win all around, right? I thought the way that was handled. So that was great. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what else big had. We talked about the debut of Architect.
Death. There were more reverse sweeps than the Overwatch League can count.
True.
AKA 2.
The Overwatch League cannot count to 2. That's a fact.
That is canon.
There were some really close matchups, I think was more their point. Guangzhou versus Seoul was a very good one. It wasn't a reverse sweep, but it was a 3-2. Hangzhou versus New York wasn't a reverse sweep, but another 3-2. I don't know. This was a very interesting week, and there was a lot of really close matches. I think the Asian region, we've been talking about it for a while. They're just such a treat to watch. Almost any time you get the opportunity to, make sure you watch those
losers, but
that's only for you.
True.
And a couple other people in Discord, but even some surprises, right? Like London gets the 3-0 win against Chengdu. I didn't really expect that to happen. It's been a while since they've found the win column. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I don't think they're going to suddenly turn around and become serious contenders, but I'm not sure Chengdu was really in that boat either. It's a team that you'd call a serious contender. Maybe at times earlier on. They did get the 2-0 lead on Shanghai the next day, but squandered it. So, that was one of the reverse sweeps. I'm trying to think any other major debuts or anything notable there.
I just thought it was
Valiant beating Florida, I think, is one worth talking about.
Yeah, that is another one, because we've been seeing Florida sort of take steps up and go and make their way. People are claiming top 5 and stepping stones there, and this was sort of a step back.
Yeah, definitely was a step back. Personally, I think it's par for the course a little bit, though, as strange as that might sound. I've talked a lot about the team kind of goes as far as Chris is able to take them, because he, on some heroes, seems to be such a massive problem for them. And on others, he's just fine. And with Brig kind of out of things, I don't think he was really able to play in a role that really suited him that well. He was back on the Lucio a little bit. I'm kind of thumbing through their match. Yeah, he was playing Baptiste. And to me, when they've got him on Baptiste is about the nightmare scenario. You really want him to be on the Brig as much as possible, and with that out of the hero pool, it was, I think, a very tough week for Florida. It does a lot to enable Yaki specifically on the Tracer. Just having those armor packs on the backliners is a very big game changer. And yeah, I don't know. It just, to me, that's the big hang up here for Florida, is they really need a main support that can handle all the heroes. They're great when they can get him on one where he doesn't just really stand out and kind of blow it for him. But otherwise they do have some problems. But listen, that's not to take credit away from the Valiant either, right? Like Shax has been out of this world on the Tracer. They have seemingly come to the conclusion that I wanted them to come to a long time ago, and that's Dreamer's the main tank that they need to be playing. And so I think having Dreamer be there more consistently has been very good for the Valiant. Lastro's starting to come into his own a little bit. I think it was helpful that this week he was able to play the Zen, which I thought he looked really strong on. McGravy's been solid. KSP's been solid. But yeah, I think the success of the Valiant is a little bit in the hands of Shax, maybe similar to Houston and Dante, right? And they're very kind of similar players and hero pools and everything like that. They're kind of at the top of the list as far as Western Tracers and Western DPS players go. So we'll have to keep an eye on them. I'm still constantly having to readjust and reevaluate my opinion and my position on the Valiant, but still not quite there and ready to make any broad sweeping claims or anything. I'm still not exactly sure what this team is, and I think that's in large part because they aren't either, and they haven't reached their potential, and they haven't, finished adapting and changing, and they're going to be hard to pin down all year, I think.
I will say that if there's one thing that's been constant about the LA Valiant, and even going back to when they were Immortals back before Overwatch League, it is that they are constantly bobbing between one of the best teams in the league and one of the worst teams in the league, or just staying right in the middle. There's no consistently of we're solidly at this spot. It's like they've been the best team in Overwatch at times. I mean, if we're going historic, they've been the worst team in Overwatch at times. That has been the case. And they just always, it's like they're the perfect dynamic equilibrium. They always average out to be exactly in the middle.
Yeah, the even Stevens of the league.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. But
so does that mean we should be expecting a disappointing loss from them next week?
Yes, we should. With 2 weeks,
bet on Paris.
It's not. It doesn't even itself out into it immediately, right? It's over the course of Overwatch history. So you'd have to look.
Sounds like you're hedging your bets on.
I absolutely am, because I'm smart. I've learned financial and fiscal responsibility in my old age now. But let's move on and.
Let's break it.
No hero pool this week. So, Death, what are we looking at for maybe a meta coming into this week?
It's really tough to say, and in large part because I don't have a definitive answer on whether or not the Genji changes will be put into play starting this week. I believe the original statement was that it was 2 weeks after it went live, and I think by Friday we might be at day 15 or something like that. So I'm leaning towards thinking the Genji changes will be involved. I think TMP said in Discord that he remembers hearing a coach talk as though it was going to be involved and be part of this week. And it would make sense too, right? With the 2 week hero pools, you're not going to introduce a patch in between the 2 weeks, and you don't want to delay the bringing of it in to not have it involved in the tournament, right? It would make the tournament fun and innovative, different, and there would be a tangible shift and change from what the May Melee was if all of a sudden Genji was everywhere. And so I think that's going to be really interesting to look at. So assuming Genji changes in, I think we have to really look at Dive as being much more viable. You're going to get Diva back into the mix. You're going to get Brig back into the mix. And we've talked about how important Brig can be on those backline DPS players. Having those armor packs built up on them does wonders for their ability to wreak havoc in the backline. So I'm looking kind of Winston Diva, maybe Tracer Genji with an Ana Brig support line for what I think the Dive compositions are going to look like. we're not likely to see the full retreat of double shield. One thing we've seen emphatically since Hero Pools has come in is that teams play what they're comfortable with and what they think they're best at, because it gives them the best chance in the moment. There's some teams that are going to really stick to those double shield compositions, and I think that's going to really open things up quite a bit. You can't forget, everybody talks about the Genji change in the patch, and it's like the Genji patch, but his brother got some love too when Hanzo's back. So maybe you see some double shield compositions with Hanzo there, to really just nuke through the Winston bubbles, and he's always been pretty strong on the flanker DPS. You hit the headshot on the Tracer, she's gone, right? You just don't have to worry about it anymore. So it'll be very interesting to see. There's not going to be, I don't think, any one end all be all patch. I think as long as Hero Pools even remotely exist, 1 week, 2 weeks, it's going to really encourage teams to probably do what I would think is the smart thing, and really lean on all of the all of the different compositions that they have, all the different heroes, and play that dynamic play style. So yeah, there won't be any one answer, but I think, assuming we've got the patch, we'll see a significant uptick in dive for sure.
I think that bodes pretty well for a decent number of teams. Maybe not for everyone, but should be. Dive's
You
always
specifically,
fun. Yeah, that very true.
Who are you and Hacksaw? Man, I wonder who can play Genji on that team with Who Are You and Hacksaw there. Is there any Genji players?
I just want to see them do a Genji 1v1 to decide who does play the Genji.
True.
I mean, we want to see.
Get on it, New York.
That's the content we want to see.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mixer.com/NYX. Wait a minute.
Yikes. Tied it back together. We start off the week with Chengdu Hunters versus Guangzhou Charge Death. I feel like we've seen, as many times as we've seen this, it's still, I think it's certainly favored for Guangzhou. Chengdu's not looked great. But also, it's hard to rule them out at any point in time.
But Chengdu did go up 2 games on Shanghai and was very close to completing that. So you're absolutely right. Listen, you're never going to be able to just be like, Chengdu doesn't have a chance, they're going to get rolled. But right now, in their current state, I'm not going to be in the business of picking Chengdu to win, especially versus a team like Guangzhou that is... they're really starting to stand the test of time with this, right? Like, they put down Seoul and Hangzhou in their resurgent week. To get that reverse sweep, to shut that down is huge. That shows a lot of fortitude to stand tough against Seoul when they were Seoul's not been playing poorly in a little while now. So these are really big, strong wins from Guangzhou. They have to be considered one of the top in the region. I've got them above both Hangzhou and Seoul at the moment. This is, I'm going to say 3-0 here for Guangzhou, but you're very correct to mention the anything goes Chengdu factor that is absolutely in play.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I'm not calling the upset here. That's what I'll leave it at. It's not, certainly not favored, but boy, oh boy, could it happen. Next up, we get the rematch from the finals of the May Melee, Seoul Dynasty versus Shanghai Dragons. Death, who do you have?
I'm going to go 3-1 for Shanghai here, and I'm going to call it that decisive because I think Seoul will try to cling to the double shield. They've been playing the 2 main tank players consistently without fail. It's never led to good diva play from them, and I think if you're unwilling or unable to efficiently swap into a dive kind of composition and play your best, I just don't see how you get out of a series and beat Shanghai going into this meta. You have to have an Echo, I think, too. Not that it's going to be a must-pick hero or anything like that, but I just think she functions really important roles within dive to be able to beat certain things. And there feels like tools in the kit that Seoul just doesn't have. So you need the meta to really line up and agree with them in order for them to have the ability to take down the best team in the region, which is what Shanghai is. So yeah, I'm going to go with a convincing Shanghai win here, 3-1. But who knows? Maybe Sol just plays Michelle, or it started to look a little bit better with Marvel on the Diva at some points. So maybe that comes together and they're able to kind of get over that hump. They've not been so far behind that's unthinkable. But again,
right,
I'm still me, so I'm not going to call that happening. I'm going to wait for them to show me that I can count on that before I factor it in.
I mean, we look at the May Melee and like they were up. What was it? 3-0. They were up 3-0 and then got reverse swept. Right? Am I thinking of that? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so.
In the May. So like, if we're looking at it from that perspective, Shanghai actually was the upset, even if on paper going into it they weren't. At a point in time, they did the upset, right?
Yeah,
making that reverse sweep. So like, I don't know if I put it at 3-1. I would maybe think 3-2. I'm definitely with you and leaning towards Shanghai. I think it's going to be a really close game. And like the other thing is, both teams have played against each other more than any other team, I'm imagining, just because of that May Melee in terms of actual maps played. So like both teams have a lot of tape on each other and know how each other plays. So like, who does that benefit? Does it benefit the team that won most recently, or does it benefit the team that lost most recently? Because the team that lost is more likely to adjust their strategy, right? Because they know they need to change something. And I think that dynamic is very interesting. And this is a very like, it's almost like a fine wine. Like this matchup has aged so well because you've seen it so many times. I think it's going to be a great match. Certainly going to be close. I'm calling it 3-2. I'm going to go with I'll go with Shanghai though, because I think that is definitely they're definitely favored, but it's going to be close.
Can I shoot your analogy down?
Go for it.
Immediately after you made it.
Yes.
So you like a matchup that happened a bunch over the regular season, sort of like Vancouver versus San Francisco last year did. And then when you get to the end of the season in the grand finals, you get the best version of that, and you just get the best match of them. And wait a minute. Oh,
yeah, it didn't happen. But theoretically, that should have happened. It just didn't. The result wasn't there.
Maybe that says the theory is flawed. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe. That's like saying I play pocket aces versus Nah, I'm not going into it.
No, I mean now that I've poked holes in your theory to support what you said, if it wasn't for me trying to like read the tea leaves of the meta and the impact of removing the hero pool for this week, I would have this as a very close matchup. But like I said, I think given what I think the meta is going to be going into the change, or at least what'll show immediate success, right? Like I think it'll be easier to figure out how to make dive work when you're like throwing bodies at shield tanks and stuff like that will work out better than trying to like decode that dive and break it down and beat it that way. I just think that's a little easier. And if the dive's also probably the better comp of the two, then
definitely makes sense. I think it should be a good match one way or the other. All right. Next up in the Asia region is Hangzhou Spark versus the London Spitfire. Seems a bit like a difference in tiers here. It's London. I don't think London's really leveled up that much.
No, I mean, they did get the win 3-0, but again, that was versus Chengdu, who can, you're never surprised by the 3-0 win or the 0-3 loss, no matter what happens.
Right.
And Hangzhou just came out of the slugfests this past weekend in both of their matchups. The win versus New York, which I just can't mention enough on the show this week, and also the loss versus Guangzhou. I just think they're definitely couple tiers above, and it feels a little weird to say that so soon after the additions come in, but I think they were one tier above London even before those acquisitions. So should be I'll go with the 3-0 win here for the Spark.
No disagreements on my end, except for the fact that you said NYXL lost, which I can't accept, even though it happened. Next up, we move to NA, and we've got Florida versus your boys in green, the Houston Outlaws. Is Florida back on their their track towards the top 5, or is Houston going to I don't know where I'm pull the rock out from their rock. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. And
It was a solid Sigma joke. That's what we'll say. This is a tough one. I mean, everybody knows who I want to win. But when I look at it and I look at what the meta is, and I have to think of Houston as a team that's a little unproven in the Genji department. If Florida's not going to be playing a double shield based composition, and you have to think they're going to want to lean into the dive and let Yaki loose on the tracer, and they're going to be able to put Chris on the Brig role, which I said earlier is such a big impact and makes such a big difference for this team. If I'm right about the meta, I think it favors Florida just a little bit more. I'll take Dante in the Dante versus Yaki fight. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that battle. I think things are lining up well for both teams. But when I really break it down, I think the front line of Florida is a little more safe, a little more consistent. We're still figuring out what hydration can do and what roles he can play well. And apparently Muma's had some wrist issues. We don't know if he'll be back. If it was Winston based, I'd kind of want Muma to be in there, I think. But we'll see what that all looks like. But the front line, I give a slight advantage to Florida here. And then I don't know. I mean, sure, Hydration and Blase were signed, and they're projectile DPS players, and Lynxers played the Genji in the past, but I'm just not entirely certain they have somebody that can really pop off and play an absolute elite Genji. I'm also not sure they need to. We could see something like Lynxer on the Tracer and then Dante on the Echo a lot. We could see Blase come in and play Doomfist, although Doomfist is almost better when you're like diving into double shield than it is diving into dive, right? I don't think you want Doomfist in a dive mirror match. So yeah, I mean, this could easily go either direction. With Florida, got a reminder that they're very human, and Houston looks as good as they've looked. But I'll go 3-2 for Florida on this one. I just think it's the safer pick. It's the one that makes a little bit the most sense. But this could also be like match of the week levels good, back and forth, going to map 5 or map 6. This one could be really, really interesting. But yeah, I'll go 3-2 Florida.
I agree with everything that you said, but I'm picking Houston here just so that when they win, I'll look better. I'll look like the real Houston fan, and I'll be like, I don't even care. So we'll go tails never fails for Houston here. Ooh, and the coin says Houston is going to win this one. So the coin is on both of our sides, but really my side because I put my neck out there and made the pick. I'm the real fan here.
You just never pick Florida is basically your thing.
It's my new thing. Now that they're actually good, I can't pick them anymore. It's not cool. Next up, we've got the recently humiliated Dallas Fuel versus our boys, the Toronto Defiant. Death.
Yeah,
who are you going
I picked the wrong one of my teams to upset last week. Man, it's impossible. There's two different answers to this question.
Yes.
Are they still doing the decay throw?
Right.
And if so, Toronto's going to win. But if decay's out there, I think Dallas has to be considered the favorites going into this. He's got to be getting so much grief for it on Reddit and everywhere. Like, it's really hard to imagine Arrow doubles down on this and goes, "We need to see it again," right? Like, and throws Onigod out there with Doha again. But it's far from impossible. I don't know. Maybe we see AKM this week. Who knows?
I hope so.
Give me Dallas 3-1 here, but as soon as you see Onigod Doha, flip it. The score, everything, flip it. It becomes 3-1 Toronto.
Yeah, I agree. I really want Toronto to be in a spot where we could actually predict them to get the victory here, but it's just not. It's not there. Even with Sure4, we're not seeing it yet. But I'm hoping that we'll be surprised here. Next up, we've got the battle for the bottom: Vancouver Titans versus Boston Uprising. Vancouver won last week. Death, can they pull off 2 in a row?
I'm not going to bet on it. I mean, it took a pretty substantial throw to get the win. Boston has been looking better, but I think the meta is about to move away from them a little bit. So that might even things out, but I'll still lean mildly on Boston here, but let's call this a 3-2. You're right to call this battle for the bottom. It could get pretty ugly pretty fast if Boston falls apart in dive, like I kind of half expect them to.
Hey, some teams get a win under their belt, and they all of a sudden they know how to do it, and they can continue it. But I'm not picking it here. I'll agree with you. Give me Boston.
They also could have snuck players on a better ping, and we wouldn't ever have any idea. So who knows?
No comment. No comment. No comment. No comment. Washington Justice playing up against the LA Gladiators, and I feel like every time we bring up the Washington Justice, it's like there's a tier difference in the teams here. I'm just not seeing them pick up a victory,
unless they were playing against one of the opponents in the last match.
Right,
There's definitely a tier difference. The Gladiators are only going to improve off of what we saw this past weekend in the loss to Houston. Again, that wasn't like an embarrassing loss for the Gladiators. It was just a surprise, very adequate performance from the Houston Outlaws. Right. I do, however, think the Gladiators have some work. I mentioned it last week. It continues to be true. Shaz got to play the Zen this week, and it still didn't seem to really come together. He was still not his old self, and I think it's a really big problem for this team. They need to find a way to fix him, and maybe this is a get-right game and exactly what they need, and does the trick. I don't know. I will be predicting the Gladiators here again, just one or two tier differences are clearly separating the teams. I'll go 3-0 because I think Washington's got a lot of work to do.
No disagreements from my side. Okay, we move on to the next day, the next grouping of Asia region matches. We start with Shanghai versus Hangzhou. Is Hangzhou the real deal? Are they able to compete with the perennial first in the region right now, Death?
This is definitely going to be an interesting one to watch. You just saw Hangzhou give the other, two of the other top three teams in the region a 5-map run for their money last week. You saw Shanghai looking incredibly human, having to go to 5 to take down Chengdu. Far from a mortal lock for Shanghai, though I will be picking them. I'll give it the 3-2 score. I'm not super confident in their ability to dive. On paper, everything's there. They need to be able to do it, or that they should be able to play that and play it very well. But I don't feel like I've seen enough of it this season to be really confident. And Hangzhou's got to be feeling good. There's a momentum factor to the changes when they work like that, and this could be really, really close. But yeah, I'll pick Shanghai 3-2 for now, and look forward to watching this one.
Yeah, definitely match of the week potential. I'm going to agree with you here and pick Shanghai. Up next, we've got Chengdu versus Seoul here. I think even though, Chengdu can throw up a hissy fit against anyone, I got to go with Seoul in this match.
Seoul 3-1. You don't have to play the dive meta if you're playing against a team that is going to completely ignore the meta anyways. Seoul should be able to find a way to win this one, but it's Chengdu, so who knows? You
never know. One thing I do know is that in the NYXL versus Guangzhou charge match coming up next, I'm picking NYXL, baby. They're coming to get right. They got their get right later in the week, but now you got to assert dominance. Let's get some 5-0s.
Yeah, there's not going to be any O's involved in this one. Both of these teams are very, very strong. I do think in the proposed meta that I laid out, New York is the better suited team with the All-Star Genji, the plethora of All-Star Genjis to pick from in order to throw them out there. So I will take New York. I'll call it 3-2, but man, definitely doesn't have to go this way, and I'm really looking forward to watching this one. There's a bunch of really, really close, really, really good matchups this week, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, should definitely be a great week. All right, moving into the final 3 matches of the week. Back in NA, we've got the LA Valiant versus the Paris Eternal. I feel like there's some question marks around both of these teams right now and their future in this in where they stand in the league.
Yeah, again, this is going to be purely a meta call, but I think Paris will be uniquely ill-suited to play a dive-based meta. because of their tank situation. I don't think No Smite is really up to it. I'm fairly supremely confident that Ben Best isn't up to playing the Winston, but it is a little crazy to kind of see them be so polarizing based off of what their main tank position gets to play. The Valiant are a team that are on the rise. I'm much more confident in them. Man, Eggsy Sparkle, as terrifying as that sentence is to say, like, hey, you have to go against Eggsy and Sparkle this weekend. I think the Valiant are going to be able to pull it off. Not sure the ping situation for Eggsy. I think he might still be in Korea, which makes things a little tougher. But yeah, I don't know. It's rough.
Definitely, it certainly is going to be rough, but I think it'll be a pretty good match. I don't know.
Did I give a score? I'll go 3-1 Valiant, assuming I got the meta right.
Yeah, I think you're well. It's tough. I mean, we didn't see if Paris was able to capitalize last week, I would have a lot more faith in them. But like you said, Eggsy's back. Was not the explosion that we were expecting necessarily. So.
Against Shock, really hard to
true
blast them for it too much.
That is true. I'm still leaning towards Valiant as well. Next up, we've got Atlanta Reign versus Vancouver Titans. Again, unless Vancouver shows something insane earlier in the week, it's got to be an easy Atlanta pick here, right?
Yeah, I mean, Baby Bay could probably play the main tank role in this one, and I'd pick him to win, but in large part because then Erster would absolutely be playing in the DPS role. So that might be a long-term improvement. I'm Atlanta. They can field whatever version of their roster they want. They switch it around enough that it would probably just work out fine.
Yep. And the last match of the week is going to be the Philadelphia Fusion versus the San Francisco Shock, and we are ending on a high note here.
It's gonna be a battle. Man, I mean, Striker versus Carpe on the Tracer battle could be upon us. Going to be absolutely nuts. Whether it's, I don't even care who the second DPS player is for Fusion, whether it's Ivy or EQO. I think they're going to do a great job, but probably be outmatched in like the Echo battle versus Rascal. Should he play? But I'm curious to see how San Francisco utilizes their need to probably field a Genji in this match. I think there's a lot of questions really on both sides from that position in particular. Man, I'm definitely taking San Francisco here. I think that you've got to probably beat them twice, Philly, before I'm going to start picking you to beat them. But easily could go either direction. I just feel a little more confident in San Francisco's ability with their two tank options to find the best Winston on this in the server for that particular matchup. And I think that's really where the disconnect will be, where the game-changing roster position will be, is at main tank. And as good as Sato's looked, I mean, we're not talking about can they beat Paris or can they beat Atlanta or a mid-table team. We're talking about can they beat San Francisco. So I think it's right to talk about him as a potential target for San Francisco to exploit and try to take down because they're just so coordinated and so cohesive as a team under Krusty that they should be able, I think, to get the win here. But man, this is what you want to see, right? This is the battle everybody wanted to see at the end of the May Melee. Florida spoiled that fun, and just an absolute blast. So really excited for this one, for sure.
It absolutely is going to be, it's certainly going to be billed as a match of the week, at least from us. It is going to be a great one, a slobber knocker, if you will. You're picking San Francisco. I'm picking the boy Carpe. It's going to be an amazing match one way or the other, hopefully. I mean, we were saying that about Vancouver versus San Francisco. But we'll go tails never fails for Carpe and the boys. Ooh, and the coin likes Philly. So if you're superstitious and you're putting your bets down, the coin says Philly. But that is it for the week. A ton of really close matches, at least on paper. So it should be a really good one to tune into this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely set an alarm or a reminder so you don't miss Philly versus San Francisco. And I'd say wake up both days very ready to watch those Asian region matches, Seoul versus Shanghai on Saturday. And then there was 2 of them on Sunday, if memory serves. New York versus Guangzhou and Shanghai versus Hangzhou. All of these are going to be absolute bangers. And then there's even the kind of mid-tier matchups have the potential to be really, really good. So a very good follow-up to last weekend's very hotly contested matches. I hope we can absolutely see that continue. It did. There was a couple weeks there where there weren't a ton of super closely contested matches, but the schedule gods are favoring us and smiling on us a little more now. So
2 weeks ago was 3 Overwatch, and hopefully these consecutive 2 weeks are going to be really good. But that is going to be it for this week. Again, special thanks to our executive producer, Bungee Bamboo, who has supported us over at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. You can check us out everywhere on the internet, High Noon Podcast. Pretty much every single social you can think of, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you can find podcasts, we are High Noon Podcast. Don't forget to join, of course, our Discord community as well, discord.me/High Noon Podcast. But that is going to be it for Deathblow. I'm the Blevins. And remember, it's high noon.